Yo, what is going on, you guys? We had a crazy OTA yesterday, or did we? We had a bunch of tech cards get reverted. We had some other cards get hit. But one deck dodged every single part of the OTA and maybe even got better. And that is going to be Move Bounce. If you guys did not know, Sparky has elevated this deck, I feel like, to an even other level. Also enabling you to do other new move combos. I've seen some more Move Tribunal, which is something I was actually playing with Diner. But especially with Move Bounce, being able to open the door for other options, this deck continues to excel and might be the best deck in the game. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. A deck that has gone through a couple changes within like the past 2 to 3 months, of course, with Vulture going from a 3 cost to a 1 cost, and from Torch going from a 1 cost to a 3 cost, this deck continues to excel. And you have all sorts of different enablers. You have the movement with Aranya. You have the movement with Iron Fist. You have the movement with Ghost Spider. Madam Web as a move enabler. And now Sparky. Of course, I'm a little late to the party on making a video on this deck. But this deck remains, I believe, the top deck in the game. Of course, counters do exist. But if your cards aren't on the board, how can you counter the cards if they're not on the board? Which you might be like, well, there's Negasonic, there's Juggernaut, there's Goliath. Well, Negasonic is now a 4 cost. Juggernaut is a 4 cost. Goliath, yes, is a 6 cost and can disrupt what you're trying to do, but Goliath, hitting a card that has already been buffed to 30 power kind of really isn't that big of a feels bad. As well as Juggernaut, offsetting your move combos definitely is more of a major feels bad, because then you're not able to get the cards in the right order you want them to be played in or in the right spots. But if you have priority and your movement cards get moved by Juggernaut, you kind of just get value there. So there's an aspect of knowing your matchup and getting into certain instances where you actually want to have priority. Whereas most of the time I would say, though, with this deck, you're not wanting to have priority, because tech cards do exist, and Shadow King is back to a 2 cost, but Shang-Chi can only destroy 1 card in a lane opposed to all cards with 10 or more power, which is really helpful for this, especially if you are frigging a lot of these cards, which a lot of those play lines will be move into Frigga, and Sparky allows you to have even bigger moved card in order to get a bigger copy for your Frigga itself. Human Torch going to hit with an Aranya and then move back with Sparky. That's a Torch going to 8 power with Aranya, getting moved back with Sparky going to 22 power, and then boom, it gets Frigga. That's not including an instance where maybe you're doing a Madam Web, and you've Aranya'd into the Madam Web lane, and then you move your Torch, and then you Sparky it back, and then you Frigga. Like, there's so many different ways to get huge Torch, huge Dagger, even potentially huge Vulture. Vulture getting +3 is still really solid, as well as getting the additional +3 potentially with Sparky, and then getting back over to where it was, which is a +6 interaction opposed to just a normal +3. Like, Sparky really does elevate this deck and help you get even more crazier power than you maybe would have thought of prior to. And I think that's probably why I'm surprised Sparky did not get hit in the OTA. I would not have been surprised if this card had gone to a +2 instead of a +3, because we know how +3 cards operate. But this deck is not the easiest to pilot. Definitely, there's a bunch of different lines and different plays you have to think about in advance, as well as managing your hand space, managing your board space, when to do what moves, what you're facing in order to do stuff around that too. So just a lot of different things to kind of keep in mind with this list. But let's go ahead and break down each one of these cards individually. So starting off, we do have the wonderful Aranya. Aranya is a 1/2 activate move. The next card you play to the right and give it +1 power. Of course, it gets the +1 power before the move subsides. So with Torch, it goes to an 8 power. With Vulture, it goes to 6 power. With Dagger, it goes to 3 power, and then gets the additional +2 for other cards in your lane that your opponent has, which you can use this as an enabler to be able to get Madam Web value, to be able to use with Iron Fist. The way it works with Iron Fist is the lane that Iron Fist moved the card from is where Aranya moves it back. So using this with Sparky, of course, your Iron Fist would go off first, and then your card was set where it is. Aranya would move it back right to where the Iron Fist played it out of, and then Sparky would move it back to where the Iron Fist moved that card to. That is how Sparky would work into that situation. This card is just incredibly good. Even with the changes to Killmonger, your opponent kind of has to like tempo out Killmonger on turn 3 if they want to offset a lot of, you know, this kind of combos to which you're kind of setting up for some later plays, whether it is for a Frigga thing or whether it is just to set up for crazy moves in a single turn. This allowing you to kind of prep, I think, is really solid. And of course, you know, it's a run. It's a staple in some of these movement decks. Now, next, of course, we do have the Iron Fist. Iron Fist, you know, moves your card to the left. This is another card that can be bounced. Aranya cannot be bounced. Once the activate does go off, you can no longer use that activate again. It's just a 1-2 on the board, or a 1-2 you could play out if you do Beast or Toxin it back into your hand. With Iron Fist, this is a card that can be used again and again because it's an on reveal. You can use this, you know, to combo with a Ghost Spider, to combo and just move one card one time, and then maybe you bounce it back and move a different card a different time, like using this to get into other locations. This is one of those, you know, it's a cheap move card, which allows you to kind of fluctuate where you want cards to go. Playing this before you play your card that needs to be moved allows you to get that card that was just last played Frigga, whereas like a Ghost Spider makes it so you would copy the Ghost Spider with Frigga. So this kind of helps you get into a lot of your different combos. This and Aranya, especially for that Frigga, to be able to have a copy of the big card you just moved, is pretty impactful. Next, of course, we're going to have Vulture. Vulture is one of those moved cards. Of course, getting +3 each time that it moves. So multiple times in a single turn can get it to more than +3. Of course, that'd be +6 with 2 moves, +9 with 3 moves. Let's say you an Aranya into an Iron Fist. That is going to be 1 movement with Aranya, which would, of course, give it 4 power because of the +1 on Aranya. And then Iron Fist moving it again would give it a +3 power, which would be a +7 on that singular turn. And then if you Sparky it as well, you get the +3 from Sparky moving the card back, and then Vulture getting another +3, so that's +6. So that is 13 power on a Vulture in a single turn, and I think a Vulture at 115 is pretty solid. A 1-cost 15 power card is pretty good. Of course, it's nothing as crazy as, you know, Torch getting moved multiple times, but if you don't have the Torch, this is also really solid. Of course, Ghost Spider, you know, you're setting up your plays in this deck to be able to use Ghost Spider. Especially if you are bouncing cards, you want to make it so the last card you played is not a card that bounced cards, but is a potential card that can be moved. What I mean by this is, of course, you know, Beast into Toxin is another really great line just to spread your power out all over the place. Your opponent really has to guess where your movement cards are going. But let's say you don't have Toxin, you're playing your Beast into then Dagger, so then you have a card to be able to move, meaning that you can then Ghost Spider it on turn 6, or even a Vulture, Ghost Spider that on turn 6, like... Just you want to make sure you have options to be able to set up for Ghost Spider because it is last card played, and it does count cards from, you know, previous turn. So just kind of keep that in mind. And this is a really another good card that can, of course, be used over and over and over again, and helps also with the bouncing, moving a card into another lane so then you can then Beast up the Ghost Spider and the card you just moved. In order to be able to do that again, or even with Toxin, to be able to just do that again is also a very good key point in this list to be able to continue to move cards over and over and over repeatedly. Of course, Madam Web does help with that too. It helps with the positioning of cards, enabling them to go to other lanes on the board, get those other movements, maybe if you don't even have those move enablers, in order to get other value from this deck. Because, of course, you kind of need move enablers in order to be able to get that power onto your movement cards. Madam Web allows you to do that. You can also move some of your move enablers so they can be bounced better up again and used again. This is a really great utility card and a buffing card for you and your other cards here. Which is, of course, why Madam Web is another staple in movement. And Sparky. Sparky is really cool. Sparky is really good, too. So with Sparky, of course, Sparky is a 2-cost 1-powered card, and it is Activate. And so with Sparky in general, you can use this to set up your combos earlier in the game, or you can use Sparky later in the game to really just add power to maybe a place your opponent doesn't know where you had been adding power or want to add power. This is a card that, you know, can be used for Frigga value, or a card that can be used later in the game because maybe you were too late with your movements. So Sparky enables you to get extra movements in later into the game in order to get extra value. Of course, it is the last card moved, not last card played. So if Sparky himself even was the last card that was moved, Sparky would then get +3 power and move back to where it originally was. So keep that in mind. It is last card moved, not last card played with Sparky. and just really, like I said, allows you to be able to get cards back to be bounced up again, allows you to get cards to be bounced the first time, cards to be moved to get frigid, allowing you to be able to just add cards in a bunch of different areas that maybe you weren't able to prior, as well as moving cards back into the Madam Web lane, because like I said, maybe you don't have those move enablers to continue that move combo for you. There's a lot of really solid and just kind of like got to think about plays with Sparky that can go really well. Dagger is another one of those cards that is one of those move cards you really want, of course, to get big. Like this is, Vulture, Dagger, and Torch are your 3 movement cards. This gets +2 power for each enemy card wherever you move Dagger. This is a pretty good card you could also use with Frigga to be able to get another copy of that to move around. It scales pretty well, potentially can scale bigger than Vulture. In some instances, maybe you haven't gotten a lot of moves on Torch, and maybe it can be bigger than Torch. Of course, Torch is your main card you're wanting to get moved because Torch gets the biggest. But this also can scale vertically, and it kind of makes your opponents have to really think about how they're playing out their cards in order to not get Dagger as big. Of course, you didn't have Toxin. Toxin, of course, is one of those bounce cards. If you don't have Beast, you have Toxin. Toxin will be able to move those cards back into your hand. Of course, it does not discount their cost like it does for Beast. But, of course, when cards do get bounced back into your hand, Toxin does get power. So a full lane, Toxin's played as the last card in. Toxin goes to a 2/8, gets +2 for each card returned to your hand. Really good to setting up combos, moving cards into other lanes for Madam Web, sparking cards into back to their original lane for Toxin value there, too. This is just one of those cards that enables you to kind of just get those combos continued repeatedly, and you have other cards to enable you to get some better Toxin value. Next, of course, we do have Sage. Sage, of course, is another scaler that you can have in here potentially for some Frigga value. Setting up your opponent's lanes in such a way with, differentiating power, so Sage gets even more vertical. You can use this with some of these movement cards too, setting up a move card into the Sage lane before then you move it out. The best way to be able to kind of set that up, of course, would be with like a Sparky, because Sparky would move the last move card, because, of course, the way Sage is set up, if Sage is the last card you played, of course, Ghost Spider will move Sage. So, like, there's some tricky ways to kind of do that. Or maybe you haven't moved enough cards just yet, so you have Sage in that lane as well in order to scale vertically because you weren't able to hit the curve you maybe wanted to. Another pretty good card to be able to Beast or be able to Toxin to be able to play repeatedly, because it's some of that unknown power your opponent has to keep in mind, because whatever power Sage gets from her on reveal, of course, and the beginning, of course, when she gets played again, has that power, and then it gets the boost again as the on reveal goes off as well. So it's another really good scaler to potentially have in here if you don't hit your other combos, or just as another piece to add to some of your movement combos you've already hit. Next, of course, we have Human Torch, one of your main cards you're wanting to move, one of your main cards you want to Frigga, because every time this card moves, it gets +2 power. And, of course, all of the main enablers for this card, and I'm thinking of like the Aranya and the Sparky, whenever this card gains the power, it gets the +1 from Aranya, it gets the +3 from Sparky, it gains the power before the move completely subsides, which is then when Torch ends up getting that extra power on itself. So if it gets that +3, it gets that +3 and then it doubles. If it gets that +1, it gets a +1 and then it doubles. So keep that in mind, especially when also it comes to some of these locations. It'll get the movement and then it'll double. Except instances where I believe something like Shuri's Lab too. Keep that in mind too. Sorry. With Shuri's Lab, when this moves, and then Shuri's Lab will go off. So like if you move this card with Iron Fist, and then like you play Iron Fist, you play Human Torch on Shuri's Lab, you move the card with Iron Fist, this goes to 6 power, and then it gets doubled by Shuri's Lab, because, card happens before location happens. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, you have Frigga to copy either your Torch, your Dagger, or your Vulture. Sometimes you maybe want to copy your movement cards, but not really often, or copy maybe a Toxin. Those are very niche scenarios, but not completely out of the ordinary. Like, there are definitely situations that can help. But you're really trying to either copy a card on 4, potentially on 5, but 4 is really kind of the bread and butter sweet spot, I would say, to be able to get extra movements for those cards that you've copied going into turn 5 and turn 6, or at least having those cards on the board, or just having ways to be able to set up your plays. It's one of the main reasons why you do have Frigga in this deck. And then, of course, you do have Beast. Beast is another one of those cards, bounces cards back to your hand, and they cost 1 less. Of course, it's only for the next turn. It's not for the entirety of the game. So with Beast, it really, enables you to kind of set these combos more and more to be able to potentially bounce some of these more expensive cards. Maybe it is you're bouncing like an Iron Fist, a Human Torch, maybe a Ghost Spider just to set up a Ghost Spider for later. But if you bounce an Iron Fist and a Human Torch, you can then Iron Fist Human Torch into Frigga, and then you can get another Human Torch, and you can use that as another potential line, especially if you can get your Human Torch into like a Madam Web lane, so then you get extra movement value there too. And then of course you have Ghost Spider to be able to get copy of the copied, or not the copy, to be able to move the copy of the Human Torch. Like, you just have a bunch of different ways. Like, this deck really does make you think, and like there's a bunch of different lines and stuff you gotta like really look through and kind of see what happens. Maybe if you're running into a lot of, you know, Mercury and stuff, because I started to run into a lot more Mercury like last night, you could maybe, I'm just saying maybe, change some of the cards out to deal with your, you know, pocket meta. Maybe it's instead of a Sage, you're doing a Rogue, so you don't have to worry about Mercury, and Mercury is just everywhere. But, like, definitely probably not doing that. You're just going to scale vertically more than, like, a bunch of these other cards and these other matchups. So, like, in a lot of these instances, it's more just min-max. You know, retreat when you know you're going to lose the least amount of cubes, and then snap when you have some of your main win conditions. Whether that is a torch, you know that's going to get big and you have Frigga. Snap into a lot of these different scenarios because people are just going to retreat because they're not going to be able to match the power. So a lot of the main instances you want to do with this, you just want to snap before you do a play, maybe 2 turns even in the future, because you know you're about to go crazy. If you have the setup, people are definitely going to retreat against this deck because they don't have the tech to be able to deal with it, and because it's arguably like the best deck of the game. And if they can't do anything against the best deck of the game, they're just going to get out of there. They're going to min-max their resources as well. So you have to min-max your own. But that is going to be the gist of the breakdown. I'll try to be a little bit more thorough this time around because this is definitely more of a difficult deck to play. There's a whole lot going on with this and a lot of mental thinking you have to do in general. But I want to say, if you guys do enjoy the video, definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Be on the lookout for the buy or bust tomorrow as well. And we're going to jump right into some gameplay from stream where I try to talk out some of my plays. I make mistakes too, like, because there's still like a lot of learning I'm trying to do on the fly with this. I'm not a master of this deck by any means, but this deck is a lot of fun. And I like the outputs you can do with here and how it really makes you think into a lot of these different matchups. But we're going to jump right into some gameplay, and I'll see you guys at the end of the video. Why not? The Hood. Lose Aranya. Red Hulk. We're playing against Clog, by the way. New York. Get Vulture. Yeah, we gotta play the OP stuff, Drew. Gotta play the OP stuff, you know? You know? Yeah, full meta. Full meta. Yeah, just yellow the right. For sure. Here comes the magic. Or Doc Ock. No! My Sage gets cooked! Not the Sage. Not my Sage. More like Sag, 100%. 100%. Yo, Gooey! What is up, Gooey? Magic. You hate to see it. Pam arrow? Wait. Hold on. Hold the phone! Hold the phone. Yeah, Sparky value about to go crazy here. Debris Goblin. Nice job. Nice job, Tachi. Nice work, King. I am proud of you. Proud of you. There's no way they stay, right? There's no way they stay. I mean, I guess they could cannonball me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, the double dagger is so good. We honestly save our Frigga for turn 5 here is pretty much what we're doing. Hate that. Hate that for us. And we get Nexus. We get Sparky. Okay. So we have a really cool play we can do here. The order of operations, by the way. Order of operations. Because I think they're going to do some sort of thing where they might try and offset this. So this moves over and then back. And then I Sparky. And I should get draws as well. Yeah, this should work. So this moves over, back with Aranya, and then back with Sparky. Scarlet Spider, Sauron. Moves over. Moves back. Sparky moves it back again, and it lands into the Nexus, which allows me to win Asgard as well. Cool. And then I'm gonna do this, that, do this. Or actually, let me do just this. Get the extra power there. They magic. Even better for me. Even better for me. Mockingbird. This could get cheat now. But I now go Toxin, this. And then I have that. I messed up again, by the way, you guys. I did mess up again. Because this is now Shang-Chi bait. I'm playing too quickly yet again. I don't know why. I mean, I should play Aranya down as well, because that's his free power. Yeah. Yeah. Hulkling, Quinjet. To Madam Web, Iron Fist. Dagger goes right. Sage, Ghost Spider, Torch. I think it's this. I think this is it. Scarlet Spider goes left. Odin. Cool. They're being very generous to us. I think they just wanted to emote. We got Danish. Legion armor also is something that would have been scary. That is true. That is true. Where the wolf? The werewolf. Iron Patriot. Dormammu. That's cool. Mob. 3 cards in hand, and Merlin. Corvus, Hulkling, and Sasquatch. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 goes to 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. Oh, you think it's that way? Is that more power? Is it this into this, that, Blade, Blink, to death. Honestly, I probably should have just done, if I did the whatchamacallit, just play torch here, and then I done the Iron Fist middle. It was more power. We have Sparky, we have Web. Let us lock in. Lock in, and we have Kiln. Surge. Gwenpool. I have extra energy here. Do I want less power on the board or do I want more power on the board? I think I want this to be cheaper like this. I think I want this. Mysterio. Kitty. And Ghost Spider onto Kitty. Mobius. Okay. But I have White Hot Room. Elsa thing into Kitty. Move dagger middle. The Iron Fist, the Aranya, just to get some extra power. I have just Torch right, and then I have Sparky. Maybe they thought I wouldn't play the Torch out or something. We needed a little boost, right? And we needed just a little boost. God, they lose Laufey and we lose Dagger. Okay, could be worse. We do get Aranya though. In Frigga. Laufey Enjoyers, Dryden. Laufey Enjoyers. Oh, High Evo. High Evo Laufey things. I like what we're working with. I like what we are working with. Sunspot. Okay. Ooh, and we get this? Okay, so question. Is this Madam Web into Aranya? Or is it just Aranya into Torch middle? And then Madam Web, and then friggin' stuff. I think it's this. I think it's that. Viv. Torch goes right. And then I'm going to go Frigga. And then I'm going to go Torch Madam Web. Cyclops. This is the last Torch I played, so that gets the Ghost Spider value. The Abomination. Last Torch I played is this Torch. This is the last Torch I played. If I move this middle, I then can go Beast. I can go Beast. I can go Toxin. Sparky, Toxin into Vulture, Ghost Spider. This gives me 8 power left. That should be good. The question is also, if I just go Torch right and I go Vulture, Ghost Spider, this is 5 going here, goes to 10, goes to 36 plus 8. No, the best play is to move Torch middle, go Sparky, Toxin, get Toxin to 8 into Vulture, Ghost Spider. Big Hulk. I could double move Torch, but we do not need to double move Torch. Do not need to double move Torch. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Move Balance has definitely been one of my guilty pleasures as of recently. Of course, you know, it's an amazing deck, but I like having, like I said, to do all the mental math and really think about all my like situations. And if I do this, how can I do that? And be like more reactive as well as aggressive with this deck in order to min-max, I think, the proper way, which I really do enjoy that aspect about Snap. This OTA was very interesting. You know, they reverted some tech cards. They kept some tech cards the same. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think the OTA was a good OTA? Do you wish they had changed even more cards? Do you think none of those cards should have been reverted? Just let me know your guys' thoughts. And as always, definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. It's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.